Hello and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. Today on the show, we're going to talk a little about pre-season buying, corn, soybeans, any seed really, fertilizer, ag chemicals, all those things. Everybody's asking right now, is this the time to buy? Should I be buying later? We're going to discuss that a little bit on the show today.
Well, if you're planting winter wheat, one thing you absolutely have to buy, and it really doesn't matter what the price is going to do, you need it. It's wheat seed treatments. We'll talk about which ones are critical to your success.
We've got a Weed of the Week coming up later in the show as well. But first, here's this week's Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to talk a little about cation exchange capacity, or CEC.
We get many questions all throughout the year about how much fertilizer, how much plant food can my soil hold, and how can I determine if one soil can hold a little bit more fertilizer or plant food than another soil. Also, this specifically comes into play when we think about nitrogen recommendations for crops like corn and wheat that are using a lot of nitrogen. The reason why is that nitrogen can convert to nitrate, which is a form of nitrogen that can actually leach down through the soil. So many farmers are concerned about how much fertilizer can I put out there at any one time, because I want my soil to be able to hold it so my crop can take it up, and I don't want to put on too much where it will leach away.
So the old method that farmers were using was basically just saying, well, I have heavy soil, or I have a medium textured soil, or I have a light soil. But if I've got a medium or heavy textured soil, I can throw lots of nitrogen out there and I don't have any worries. Okay, so that was the old unscientific method. Today we've got a scientific method called cation exchange capacity. And this is what farmers are using, so they have more of an exact way to measure things out in the field. This cation exchange capacity is a simple soil test that's done, and all it is a measurement of the type of clay the farmer has in the soil, the amount of clay he has, and the amount of organic matter in the soil.
All right, let's just start with cation. What is a cation? That's just a positively charged element. And when we have soils that have a negative charge, the cation exchange capacity tells us how many of these positively charged nutrients, like calcium or magnesium, our soils can hold at any one time.
Okay, so with this cation exchange capacity, the farmer gets the number. What does he do with it? Well, basically with nitrogen, what we're trying to determine is how much the farmer can apply at any one time. So all he does is takes the cation exchange capacity number times 10. So for example, let's say that number is 8. We take 8 times 10, that soil will hold roughly 80 pounds of nitrogen at any one time. If, let's say, for example, there's already 20 pounds sitting in the soil, that means he can apply an additional 60 pounds. So this is the way we use a scientific measurement to determine how much nitrogen can be applied to that soil. Now, let's say the farmer wants to put on 130 pounds throughout the course of the year, but he's only got 60 pounds that he can apply in this one shot. That means that later on during the year he needs to apply additional nitrogen, and he can do that through a number of different methods. But basically what we talk about as farmers is we are split applying our nitrogen, putting some on early and some on later in the year, because the soil can't hold it all in one application.
Now, cation exchange capacity really doesn't tell you what the potential yield is from your farm. For example, some of the highest yielding corn farmers in our country have very low cation exchange capacity soils. That just means they have to put their nutrients out for the crop in multiple doses, where farmers with very high cation exchange capacity soils could potentially put more nutrients out in 1 or 2 applications rather than having to spread it out over 6 or 7 applications.
Well, the other thing with this is cation exchange capacity isn't just the amount of nitrogen the farmer can hold, it's the amount of anything he can hold, including water. So when you've got a low cation exchange capacity number, that means your soil can't hold a whole lot of water, and irrigation would be more beneficial on those soils. When you have a very heavy soil, usually those soils are much more drought tolerant.
Now, the thing about cation exchange capacity, as Brian mentioned earlier, it's a measure of a few things, one of them being the amount of organic matter in the soil. That's the one that farmers can influence if they're trying to build up their cation exchange capacity. Farmers can reduce tillage, use manure, use cover crops, plant crops with lots of root mass. There's a number of things, and use some microbial products that will help influence root growth even more. All those things farmers can do to try and build their cation exchange capacity slowly over time. But for the most part, your cation exchange capacity doesn't change a lot from year to year. So farmers like to know what their cation exchange capacities are for their various soils that they're farming, so they can better manage the soil and do a good job with the environment.
The other thing farmers like to know is how to control our weed of the week. We'll tell you how to do it on your farm coming up later in the show.
What's next in weed control technology? Roundup Ready 2 Extend soybeans will provide tolerance to dicamba and glyphosate and will be built on the Genuity Roundup Ready to Yield trait. See them in action at extendfollowafield.com.
This year's projected U.S. soybean yield will lose over $500 million per point in shrink. Eliminate shrink in your bin. Store grain without lowering moisture content with the AgriDry Bullseye Temperature and Moisture Controller. The Bullseye monitors air temperature and relative humidity, allowing your fans to utilize the weather's natural condition to maintain your grain at market moisture. Fan run times drastically decrease along with the cost of over-drying. Eliminate shrink today. Call now.
Looking to maximize yield? Quick Roots is a microbial seed inoculant that allows the plant root to explore a greater volume of soil, the key to higher yields. Quick Roots continues to generate yield response on corn, soybeans, wheat, and more. Quick Roots is applied to the seeds so the live microorganisms go right to work, enhancing seedling vigor, increasing the uptake of certain nutrients, including NPK, and expanding root volume. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Call TJ Technologies or your local dealer and get your Quick Roots today.
For lower cost, higher production, Mandaco Agri leads with versatility unmatched. Twister is the vertical tillage unit for no-till as well as conventional tillage. Twister's ease of maintenance is forgiving and rocks and has contour conformity equaling zero downtime. Our hydraulically adjusted coulter angles make residue management easier, less costly. Spring or fall, the Mandaco Twister vertical tillage unit is the new leader. See your Mandaco Agri dealer. Visit northcountrymarketing.biz or call.
We know that the future is liquid. Agroculture liquid fertilizers' constant research and development creates next-generation products that seem like science fiction. But the fact is, the yields, the sustainability, the food and fiber that our customers produce season after season is not a dream, but a reality. Agroculture liquid fertilizers, helping you grow the future.
A proven herbicide for decades, dicamba can provide burn-down residual control of tough and resistant weeds for up to 14 days. That's another reason why farmers will use dicamba for years to come. Brought to you by Roundup Ready Plus Weed Management Solutions.
In many areas of the country, it's getting time to plant winter wheat, but one of the big questions we get is, should I use a seed treatment, and if so, what should I be using?
When you're getting ready to treat your wheat, there's several different things you may want to put on the wheat seed. You may want to put on a fungicide, and I think that's very important, especially if you can do two different modes of action. I also think an insecticide is absolutely critical, and higher rates are needed as we're getting a lot of wireworm pressure in many of the wheat growing areas in our country. Then you have to look at some of the other things like biological products, and there are a few that are proven out there that have been working well, and there are a lot of new ones that are coming along too.
Well, let's start there, because as soon as we say the word biological product, number one, it might be scary. Number two, you say, oh, that stuff just snake oil. Well, look, I realize there are a lot of biological products out there that may not have been the best, but we have found some that have been very effective. One we've been using on wheat on our own farm is Quick Roots, and that's beneficial bacteria and fungi. So whether you try that or you try something else, if you've never used one of these things before, we really strongly encourage you to try them, because all the big companies are investing literally billions of dollars in this segment of the market. They wouldn't do things like that if they hadn't found some proven technology out there and some things that can help you and give you a decent return on investment. You just have to try some of these things and find the one that works for you on your farm.
Well, okay, let's just take real quick Quick Rits, for example. What is it? It's a beneficial bacteria and a beneficial fungi. And what we've seen on our own farm and farms across the country is we do get more root mass. There's more fine root hairs out there. And when we do plant tissue analysis, we are seeing more nutrient uptake. So it makes sense. You know, just to say, well, we're seeing this much yield gain, and we have seen good yield gain on spring wheat and even better yield gains on winter wheat by using Quick Rits. That's fine. Yield gain's one thing, but why is it happening? Well, we're seeing more roots, we're exploring more of the volume of soil that's around that root mass, we're getting more nutrients into the plant early, and that's really critical in a crop like wheat.
So whether you use Quick Rits or anything else, again, we just want you to start experimenting with those biologicals. It's something that we're sold on because we've been using them for many years. But there are a lot of different products out there, a lot of different choices. There are also a lot of choices when it comes to that fungicide thing. I mean, it seems like almost every company now has a different fungicide, and they've got 2 or 3 fungicides they want you to buy and want you to use on that wheat seed treatment. The most important thing whenever we're talking about these fungicides and fungicide packages, or just seed treatment packages, is it going to dry in that seed? Are you going to have decent plantability? So that's the first thing we're concerned about. Second, when we're talking about fungicide, we want efficacy. We want to have this stuff work. There are diseases out there, and granted, I realize a lot of winter wheat country isn't exactly the heart of the Corn Belt where they get 40 inches of rain a year. You're dealing in drier environments. You're dealing with fewer seed and seedling diseases, but still a lot of these fungicides are $2 to $4 an acre. They're very inexpensive. What generally happens is this: you won't have real big yield gains 3 out of 4 years, but there will be 1 year where you gain 4 or 5 bushels, and that's enough to pay for that seed treatment for all of those years. So all those years where you gained nothing, you gained a bushel, bushel and a half, you say, well, no big deal, no big deal. I get that, but you got to look at that average over the long term and realize that, you know, when you put that seed in the ground, you really don't know what the environment's going to be 2 to 4 weeks later. So you're just taking a big chance if you don't have a seed treatment on the wheat.
Let's just say you have a low level of disease infection in your wheat. Well, it just sets your wheat back all throughout the whole year. You don't want to have that. If you're just using a combination of a couple different modes of action for disease management, you're going to see a nice gain over a period of years.
All right, then the insecticide piece. This is the one Darren and I will probably debate on a little bit, because in not all areas do we have big bug problems. But if you've ever had some wireworm issues, you've had some other bugs out there, you got to be at least thinking about this market segment. This also doesn't cost a lot of money to add this to your seed treatment, and the chemical family we're talking about here is the Neonicotinoids. So it's Gaucho, Poncho, Cruiser, or the lookalike products to those. They're all in the same chemical family. They're relatively safe to humans. It's the same chemical family actually as nicotine, and I realize nicotine's not the best for you to smoke for 30 years. But you know what, to deal with it for just a few days as a seed treatment, it's relatively safe. In areas where they've had lots of wireworm issues, the low rate of the Poncho, Gaucho, Cruiser just hasn't been cutting it. Yes, it'll suppress them. Yes, it'll kill some of those wireworms, but it's not getting them all. If you bump that rate, you can get a little better control. For many years on our farm, we were raising spring wheat, and a few years ago, Darren and I said, we were talking to our dad, and we said, you know, we're going to switch over and plant some winter wheat because I think we can gain an extra 10, 20, maybe even 30 bushels. And he said, oh, I've tried that, and you're going to have all kinds of winter kill and everything. And you know what? We really haven't had that. And part of it is you got to get that seed off to a good start. If you have a good package there that can protect you from diseases and insects, you've got a lot better chance to have a good stand, to have a healthy crop going into the winter, so you do have better survivability.
Well, these seed treatments for winter wheat can protect you against a lot of things, but they won't stop our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?
A strong community contains a lot of moving parts, good jobs, a healthy economy, and maybe most importantly, pride. At Poet, we are proud to be doing our part, creating new local jobs and spurring economic development while producing products that improve lives around the globe. Together, we're not just working to serve our community, but to change the world. And that's something we can all be proud of. See the world differently with Poet.
The Case IH Summer Sales Event is going on now, meaning you can turn the heat into red-hot savings. That's because all Farmall and Maxim Series tractors, along with our complete line of hay tools, are available with 0% financing for 60 months. But hurry, because while the summer sales event is just warming up, it only lasts until September 30th, 2014. For more information, visit your local Case IH dealer or go to caseih.com/special offers.
A farmer's attention to detail is what makes the difference. You take the time for service management because you know how vital it is to your operation. You service your field like everything else because soil sampling makes all the difference and gets the results you want. Download the app Soil Test Pro and start grid sampling today. Keep your farm growing strong. The more you test, the more you know.
Diversity, in a word. That sums up really the best way to try and manage any of these glyphosate or any of these herbicide-resistant weeds, not just glyphosate-resistant weeds, is using a diverse set of tactics, both with herbicides and culturally, to keep them off balance, to keep those resistance from developing on a field.
Being a farmer means securing your land and livelihood for the future. Harvest Solutions from Capello USA have the grit to get you there. Our product lines for corn, sunflowers, and forage are designed for efficiency and longevity, preventing harvest loss while minimizing maintenance and downtime. To do everything you can to advance your farmland to the next generation, call us at 855-CAPELLO or visit us at capellousa.com. Capello USA, Italian craftsmanship, American grit.
Over the last few months, we've gotten a lot of questions from farmers asking, hey, if commodity prices are coming down, should we be waiting longer than normal to buy our fertilizer, our seed, our crop protection products? We're going to talk about that just a little bit today.
Well, it certainly is a little scary as commodity prices go down and you look at your gross revenue per acre as coming down significantly from the previous year. At the same time, you know that the manufacturers have got to be coming down in the prices for some of the inputs that we're going to be using. So yes, we definitely need to run the calculations on everything that we're considering and look at return on investment. Because take weed control, for example, you're really not going to just say, well, I'm going to cut out all my weed control herbicides in the field, because you know it's going to kill you on yield. You're still getting a good return on investment, but you may want to be smart and say, you know, instead of doing this program that costs $25, I can get basically the same control out of a program that costs $20 and save $5. Now that may be something you consider and you can work through with your agronomist.
All right, so when we start talking specifically here, which of these products are we at the low, which ones are still coming down? You know, it really all depends on what happens with commodity prices. If for some reason the crop doesn't turn out as good as they're thinking, then you know what's going to happen? We've got a lot less supply, and by the way, when we have those cheap prices, we're increasing demand over there, so we got an increasing demand, a lowered supply. You know what's going to happen? The commodity prices are going to come back. Well, when commodity prices come back, then all these companies, fertilizer, seed, crop protection, they're thinking, well, if crop prices come back, do we really need to lower our prices at all? I mean, personally, I guess I'm just looking at, I don't know that fertilizer has bottomed out. They haven't even set the seed prices yet, or the ones that are set. You know, there might be some extra programs out there to help you. I do think there are going to be a lot more tie-in programs this coming year between all the different crop protection products, all the different seed products. So for example, if you buy a company's seed corn and you buy their soybeans, they'll probably have some extra deals for you this year. If you buy from a crop protection manufacturer the second item or the third item, you know, maybe there's an extra layer in there. A lot of the companies have been talking about that. There's also going to be some 0% finance offers on a lot of the seed and a lot of the crop protection products. So with many of these things, if you just play them right, then you should be able to lower your net cost at least a little bit. So yeah, overall, we're expecting all three of those categories, fertilizer, seed, crop protection, to all be down at least just slightly going into 2015 because of what commodity prices have done, at least to this point.
People will ask, is it the right time to market my grain? And I look at that fertilizer piece being such a large input investment, you know, compared to crop protection is relatively small. Seed and fertilizer are much bigger investments that you're making on your farm. So when you're making those big purchasing decisions, you definitely have to look at, well, can I make money right now if I market that crop? And yeah, you may not like where that price level is at right now, but if you can lock in a profit, that's definitely something you have to consider. We've seen that over the last decade now, where crop prices have been high and fertilizer prices and seed prices have been relatively high. If you lock them all in at the same time, you locked in a really nice profit margin. If you gambled and said, well, you know, corn is way up here and seed prices, you know, I don't know, I'm going to sell some corn and I'm not going to buy my seed, I'm going to wait. Well, then the seed price adjusted and went up higher, you lost that profit margin. The same thing can happen the other way. If you're buying your fertilizer right now and you're not going to lock in any of your crop sales, you may have the thing go the other way on you. That crop price may come down even further and you bought high-priced fertilizer. So just consider that. If you're spending the big money, if you're investing the big money into your crop with seed and with fertilizer, that's a time to consider marketing at least a portion of your crop to cover those costs.
The other thing is certainly we are going to have a number of crop shifts this year. I believe that we'll see fewer corn acres going into 2015, and the reason why is because a lot of guys are saying, well, even if I look at the seed, I spend $100 an acre on corn seed versus $50 an acre on soybeans, I can invest a lot fewer dollars in that soybean acre. But I just want to remind you, when we start talking about fertilizer, a lot of people will say, well, soybeans are a scavenger crop. No, they're not a scavenger crop. Soybeans have 1/5 the root mass of a corn plant on average. So which do you think is the better scavenger crop, corn or soybeans? It's not soybeans. My point is, if you want better yields on soybeans and you want a decent return on investment, you might still consider using fertilizer for your soybeans. So don't be thinking, well, fertilizer prices are still high, so I'm just going to switch all my acres to soybeans and put no fertilizer on. Yeah, you can do that, but you're probably not going to end up with a real great profit margin when your soybeans don't yield well. I guess let's be very specific here before we let this thing go. I'd say maybe on glyphosate, now might be a pretty good time to buy. There might be some deals come spring too, but I mean, it's so few dollars now. Glyphosate, that might be okay. For many of the other branded products out there in crop protection, I'd probably wait and see what the companies have for programs before I buy. On fertilizer, I definitely wait to buy until I need it, and maybe even until spring. I think the fertilizer prices have still been coming down for the most part. And then on seed, you're just gonna have to wait and see as we get later in this fall what kind of deals there are if you buy the seed corn together with the soybean seed, and maybe there are some overall packages there. But you are gonna have some companies out there that are desperate. They're going to lower their prices, and you might want to snap those up, because for many of them, they're just trying to hit a goal. And once they've hit that goal, you're going to see them raise their prices. So it might seem a little strange, but some of the companies that get real aggressive early, later on, they're going to end up raising their prices.
Well, you definitely have to consider all these inputs and look at places where you can cut back and places where you don't want to cut back. And one of the things you definitely can't cut back on is on controlling our weed of the week. If you have this week's tough weed, we'll show you how to stop it coming up next.
Your time is valuable. That's why you need a Hagie STS application system. Hagie STS products are designed for precision and efficiency, allowing you to make applications all season long with just one machine. Contact your Hagie rep today.
Our weed of the week is wild 4 o'clock.
Well, it's not normally one you think of as, this is just a horrible weed out in my crop ground, but it is a bad weed when you're looking at some areas, especially areas that are getting no tillage done. It's a perennial weed, it has an established root system, it can definitely damage the crops around it, but let's be honest, it's normally in the ditches where it's not a big problem for us. So in those cases, I'm not really worried about it, but if you want to stop it from getting out into your field, especially if you got reduced tillage or if you've got a long-term alfalfa stand, something like that, you can control wild 4 o'clock fairly easily.
Yeah, you can. Just using some 2,4-D is generally going to burn it down, but the thing is, you got to get up to a higher rate of 2,4-D if you want to have real good control. I would also say there are products out there like Tordon, for example, that I think is much better than 2,4-D. It just costs a lot more money and it leaves a lot more residual, so you have to be really careful where you use that.
All right, you talk about Tordon costing so much money. If I've only got wild 4 o'clock that I'm going to spot spray in a non-crop area, it really isn't that much, and it's definitely worth it. That'd be my recommendation if you have wild 4 o'clock.
That's it for our Weed of the Week, but stay tuned. Iron Talk is coming up next.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
Our industry-leading SCR technology has powered over 35,000 pieces of equipment with over 17 million operating hours in North America alone. Case IH, proven power, proven efficiency, proven in the field.
Iron Talk will move pretty fast today as we talk about getting your combine ready for soybean harvest. Here's a short checklist of some major points to look for. Starting at the front of the combine and working your way back, check the sickle sections on your head and replace them if they're worn. You never know when you'll hit something out in the field and need a new sickle section or two. Then look at the teeth on the reel and make sure that they're all in good shape. If your reel is bent up or missing some teeth, get it ready to go. Next, take a look at your rotor or rasp bars to make sure there are no problems. Without these in good condition, you're bound to plug up your combine in one spot or another eventually. Make sure your concaves are in good shape too. New concaves might improve your seed quality. Look at your belts next. Make sure they're tight and without cracks or weather stress. An extra belt's another good thing to have along at all times. After that, tighten your chains and inspect your paddles on your conveyors and the flightings on all augers. If your chains, paddles, or flightings are significantly worn, get them replaced now. As far as your sieves are concerned, be sure they're not damaged in any way. If you typically have a lot of trouble with pods and soybeans, a sized bean screen in the lower sieve is a must. Once you're out in the field, constantly check for harvest loss. In 1 square foot, you only need to find 4 beans on the ground to give up 1 bushel per acre. One last word of advice we'll give you is this: there's always time for maintenance. If you don't take care of your equipment, pretty soon you have to fix or replace it. So grease your machinery every morning, oil the chains on the combine, check the oil, do whatever you have to do to keep your combine in good shape. We hope this quick review helps you out this fall. Just make sure to check your equipment now and keep some extra parts on hand in case you do break down. That's it for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show. If you watch Ag PhD TV, you'll love the new Ag PhD radio show each weekday on Rural Radio Sirius XM Channel 80. This is Darren Hefty. On the new Ag PhD radio program, we'll take live callers and provide the agronomic information and brotherly banter you've come to expect from Ag PhD. We'll feature a Back 40 segment where we talk to farmers and agronomists around the country to share what's going on with crop production. And it wouldn't be Ag PhD without addressing a pest of the day. Tune in to the Ag PhD radio show each weekday at 2 p.m. Central on Rural Radio Sirius XM Channel 80.
Wake up, breakfast is served. Your roots crave pea. Most of your applied pea gets tied up in the soil, a natural phenomenon known as phosphorus fixation. Fix the problem with Avail Phosphorus Fertilizer Enhancer. Avail makes more pea available to your roots, here, here, and here. Increasing pea availability can lead to increased pea uptake in the plant. That's more pea, and more pea. More phosphorus for your crop can mean more results in your bin. An average of 9.6 bushels per acre of corn. Breakfast is served. Supercharge your pea with Avail.
The world of farming is changing. Titan Machinery and Case IH are here to make sure you're ready. The demands on agriculture keep growing. The challenge for producers is to continue to keep pace. To be successful, you'll need equipment that can get the most out of every inch of land, innovations that help you work faster, and advice from people who know your field as well as they know your equipment. Don't get left behind. Be ready with Case IH and Titan Machinery. Better solutions.
Get the most from the genetic potential in your crops, reduce plant stress, and increase yield. BioForge upregulates key genes to keep roots growing and reduce ethylene for improved plant stress tolerance. BioForge mixes well with other products for easy application with every pass through the field. BioForge, progressive growers' choice to improve root growth, reduce crop stress, and increase yield. Make every growing day count with BioForge from Stoller, USA.
Dirty work pays. That is if your dirty work includes a SoilMax Gold Digger tile plow. SoilMax tile plows feature zero deflection technology. With the only tile plow factory paired with Ag Leader's IntelliSlope control system, you eliminate the need for grade calculations and lasers. So make your next investment in a SoilMax Gold Digger. Better yield, longer planting and harvest windows, better water management is all yours with SoilMax. Visit soilmax.com.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
The all-new S-Cube commercial tender is the only tender on the market with poly tanks, giving you the capability to haul seed, fertilizer, water, or liquid fertilizer. Each cube can hold 300 units of seed, 2,000 gallons of liquid, or 300 cubic feet of fertilizer. Options include full functioning wireless remote, stainless steel conveyors, and self-contained hydraulics. Get yours today at Norwood Sales.
That's all the time we have for today's show, but for more agronomic information, we invite you to tune in to Sirius XM Channel 80. That's the Rural Radio channel for the Ag PhD radio program that airs at 2 p.m. Central each weekday.
And tune in again next time for more Ag PhD TV, where we have a Weed of the Week, Iron Talk, Farm Basics, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
No one cares more for the environment than family farmers who plan to pass their land down to their children. These same farmers are working to double yields over the next 15 to 20 years to feed the growing world. To learn how they plan to do it, visit the Responsible Nutrient Management Foundation at rnmf.org.